I stepped onto the rooftop in Rome, and the twilight sky draped itself over the city like silk, orange and violet bleeding together in slow motion. The air carried that intoxicating mix of fresh bread, vintage wine, and the sharp edges of old stone. Around me, the laughter of my wife's family danced in the air like wind chimes. It was Celeste's 65th, an occasion so sacred to the Rutherfords that it may as well have been carved into Roman marble. I'd spent weeks orchestrating every detail, from the wine pairings to the goddamn candlelight. And still, I was late. Traffic had eaten me alive. But I figured they'd save me a seat. After all, I was one of them, wasn't I? Marisa's husband, family, a teammate. But as I neared the long, lavishly set table, something twisted in my gut. 12 chairs. Not 13. 12. The table glowed under strands of warm lights. Crystal glasses caught the light like they were showing off. Laughter rang out, high-pitched and carefree. Marisa sat at the head, her black hair glossy, that red dress hugging her like a secret she didn't want to share. She turned her head toward me, a smirk curling on her lips like a blade. "Oh," she said, loud enough to slice through the chatter. "I think we made a mistake." A wave of laughter erupted. Celeste, her brother, the cousins, all in their polished armor. Their eyes turned to me like spotlights on a clown who missed his cue. I stood still. My tie suddenly felt like a noose. My fists clenched at my sides, blood rushing hot and fast. No one moved. No one offered a chair. No one even bothered to pretend. Just the laughter, echoing like glass breaking in my ears. I swallowed hard, fighting the burn. "I guess I'm not family," I said, letting my voice carry, slicing through their smug little soiree. Then I turned and walked away. My shoes struck the stone like hammers. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could see it in my mind. Marisa rolling her eyes, Celeste waving a dismissive hand, the rest already laughing about how sensitive I was being. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The Roman night hit me like a slap. Cool, clear, honest. I pulled out my phone. Weeks of planning, calls, deposits, tips to the restaurant manager to make everything seamless. My name was on every goddamn invoice, my credit card, my contacts, my time. I dialed. He picked up. "Cancel it," I said. "Everything. Food, drinks, music. Wipe it clean. And send me back my card." He hesitated. I didn't. I let the weight of my voice speak for me. Then I hung up and kept walking. 10 minutes later, I found a quiet bar on the corner. Ordered a beer. Leaned against the railing like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. From where I stood, I could still see their rooftop, still see the lights twinkling. I imagined the moment it started to unravel. The missing appetizers, the empty glasses, the slow confusion creeping in. I took a sip. The beer was ice cold and bitter, and it made everything sharper. It wasn't just the missing chair. It was everything. Years of being the tolerated outsider, the convenient extra. I gave and gave and gave. My time, my effort, my dignity. And they gave me nothing. Not anymore. I watched the chaos unfold from afar. Quiet. Controlled. Mine. For once, the silence didn't feel like erasure. It felt like power. I felt like me. 5 years ago, I was someone else. Just a guy in a crowded ballroom in Bastogne, trying to pass for someone who belonged. I was there for work, logistics consultant for some gala concert. My job was to make sure tuxedos and tenors got where they needed to go. The room glittered. Chandeliers and marble floors. People dressed in outfits that cost more than my car. I was no one. A background character. And then I saw her, Marisa. She was laughing with some guy in a tux, her black dress shimmering like ink under moonlight. She moved like the room was hers, sharp, alive, untouchable. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way she tilted her head, or the way her eyes flicked around like she was already bored of everyone. I grabbed 2 glasses of champagne and walked toward her, heart in my throat. "You look like you could use a refill," I said, offering one. She turned, gave me a once-over, and smiled. Not the polite kind, but something warmer, bolder, real. "Most people here don't talk to me unless they want something," she said. I shrugged. "I don't want anything. Just figured you might be bored." She laughed. That laugh, low, electric, a little dangerous. We talked for hours. About the gala, her work in marketing, my job with trucks and time slots. She said she liked how I saw the world, how I didn't try to impress her. That night, we ended up on a balcony, watching the lights stretch out below us like a second sky. And I knew I was hooked. But then came her family, the Rutherfords, old Bastonia money, the kind of people who used heritage like a job title. I met them at a brunch, one of those absurd garden affairs with mimosas and finger food. I wore my best jacket, shook hands like I was applying for a loan. Celeste looked me up and down like I was the plumber. "So," she said, swirling her drink, "you're in the delivery business?" Her tone made it clear. I wasn't one of them. I never was. I kept my tone polite, making sure every dish was in its place, every glass filled just right. Marisa nodded, but her eyes didn't meet mine. They looked right through me, like I was just another piece of furniture. Her father barely said a word, nursing his coffee and gazing out the window like he couldn't wait for me to disappear. Her uncle cracked a lazy joke about my tie, and her cousins didn't even fake interest, too busy trading stories about aspen slopes and yacht rentals. That's when I felt it, sharp and cold, a wall, not made of words but of bloodlines and glances. I wasn't one of them. Marisa squeezed my hand under the table, leaned in and whispered, "Don't let them get to you." I tried not to. She said she loved me. A few months later, under a sky full of desert stars, I said it back, and I meant every syllable. I believed love would be the bridge, but love, it turned out, wasn't the currency her family dealt in. At every dinner, every holiday, every champagne-soaked occasion, I was the extra, the +1, the outsider they humored. Celeste asked about my little projects, like I was running a bake sale out of a garage. Marisa would laugh it off, telling me they just needed time to warm up. But years passed, and they stayed ice cold. Still, I kept showing up, hauling Thanksgiving turkeys into their kitchens, fixing broken plumbing in their summer house, always thinking, maybe this time. But no matter what I gave, I never got invited in. Looking back, it's crystal clear. That night in Bastonia when I met Marisa, I fell for her so fast I missed the fine print. She came with legacy, with obligation, with a family that never once reached out a hand unless it was to pat me on the head. I thought love would earn me a place. I was wrong. There I was, standing in the Rutherfords' dining room 6 months into our marriage, a long oak table spread like a battlefield in front of me, fried chicken served on porcelain, limp salads in crystal bowls no one touched. I wore my best shirt, ironed it myself, tucked in neatly, but I may as well have been invisible. Celeste, regal and rigid at the head of the table, spoke about her next charity gala like she was briefing royalty. Her husband Henry nodded along, present in body only. Uncle Paul boomed about his golf game, red-faced and gleeful. The cousins scrolled through their phones, pretending to listen. I tried to add something, voice flat. Sounds like a great event. I offered to help with logistics, set up, transport, whatever they needed. Celeste didn't even blink. "Ah, this is Mila, Daniel," she said, brushing me off like I'd offered to juggle. "We have professionals for that." Silence fell. Then Paul chuckled. At least he's not bankrupt. And winked at Marisa. The table erupted in laughter. Everyone but me. My jaw tensed. I stabbed a piece of chicken harder than I needed to. "Marisa?" She didn't say a word, just drank her wine and looked away. She never spoke up, never called it out. That was the pattern. My career, solid, real, useful, was a joke to them. Technology, logistics, consulting, millions saved, systems improved. But to the Rutherfords, I was just a man who played with trucks. Daniel and his Tonka toys, Lisa once quipped, and the whole table laughed like I was a sitcom punchline. Still, I kept going. To every dinner, every brunch, clutching bottles of overpriced wine I couldn't afford, desperate for approval they'd never give. I listened to Henry drone on about office politics, to Celeste prattle about influencers and auctions. I once gave up a whole weekend to help her run one of her events, hauling tables, running cables, managing sound checks. "Thank you, Daniel," she said afterward, the way someone thanks a valet for parking their car. Marisa saw it. I know she did. On the drive home, I'd say, "They still don't like me." She'd twist the dial on the radio and say, "They're just stuck in their ways. Give it time." But time didn't melt the ice. It just made it thicker. They planned trips and forgot to include me. Had entire conversations around me. One Christmas, Paul handed me a gag gift, a cheap tie printed with cartoon trucks. "Thought of you when I saw this," he said. The laughter that followed was louder than the carols. I said thank you. I always said thank you. But inside I was unraveling. Marisa laughed too. Not cruelly, just easily. Like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. Still, I kept showing up. Fixing what was broken. Driving Celeste to the airport when her Mercedes refused to start. I thought effort would buy me respect. It never did. Now, when I look back, I wonder how I didn't see it sooner. I didn't just marry Marisa. I married into the Rutherfords, a family that didn't want me, didn't respect me, didn't even pretend. And Marisa? She let it happen. Every insult I swallowed, every slight I endured. She watched it all and said nothing. I thought I could win them over, but I never stood a chance. I was sitting at the kitchen table in our apartment in Bastogne, laptop open, papers scattered like leaves after a storm. Marisa stood by the counter, sipping her coffee, her hair still tousled from a nap. It was a few months before Celeste's 65th, and Marisa said it like she was asking me to grab milk on the way home. "She wants it in Rome," she said, casual as ever, swirling her coffee like she hadn't just dropped a logistical grenade in my lap. "I told her you'd help plan it." I paused mid-scribble, pen hovering over my notepad. "Rome?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral, even though my stomach had already begun to knot. "That's a lot." She smiled that signature smile, the one that used to melt every piece of resistance in me. "Come on, Daniel. You're amazing at this stuff. Airfare, hotels, all that logistical magic you do." Then she leaned in, voice dropping just enough to feel intimate. "This will be our event. Yours and mine." Ours. God, I wanted to believe her. I clung to those words like they were a key to something better. A chance to finally be more than the polite afterthought. A chance to prove that I wasn't just capable, I was essential. So I said yes. No hesitation. I dove in head first. Nights bled into mornings as I built the trip from the ground up. I called vendors in broken Italian, scoured boutique hotels with postcard views of the Colosseum, and booked business class flights for Celeste because anything less would spark a civil war. I even found a private vineyard for lunch in Tuscany and arranged a rooftop dinner in Rome that would make any magazine cover jealous. Everything was curated. Floral arrangements, a string quartet, a goddamn cake flown in from Milan. It wasn't cheap. And when Marisa mentioned that the family's checks are just a little delayed, I didn't blink. I dropped thousands on my personal card, telling myself it was worth it, that this would change something, that if I just built the perfect trip, maybe they'd stop seeing me as a charity case with good intentions and no pedigree. Maybe Celeste would stop squinting at me like I was a stray who'd wandered in from the wrong side of the tracks. Maybe Marisa would finally look at me like a partner, not just someone she delegated to. I worked like a man possessed. She called it our event, kept throwing out little ideas here and there. Mom would love that. Or, let's make sure there's wine at every stop. And for a minute, I felt like we were a team again. Like maybe, just maybe, we were pulling in the same direction. But in the quiet moments, I knew the truth. She wasn't in it with me. Not really. She was in the background, smiling, nodding, vanishing into her office while I held the weight. I'd call at night with updates. Villa confirmed, menu finalized, another deposit sitting on my card, and she'd say, "You're amazing, Daniel," before rushing off the phone. Meanwhile, Celeste sent me bullet-pointed demands with all the warmth of a corporate memo. "Need more shade on the boat," she wrote once. "No greeting, no thank you, just a correction." I kept nodding to myself, kept adding things to the list, kept telling myself, keep going, keep going. This was how I'd earn it, earn her respect, earn a place. I pictured the night of the party, standing on that Roman rooftop in my best suit, a glass in hand, watching the family toast me for once. Maybe a pat on the back from Henry, a smile from Celeste that didn't feel like a veiled insult. It was stupid. I didn't see it then, but I do now. I wasn't a partner. I was a mule. "Let me carry it," I told them with my actions. "Let me believe this is love." I gave them everything, my time, my money, my hope, because I believed that somehow all this effort meant something, that it would shift the scales, that they'd finally see me. But they never planned to. The Rutherfords don't let people in. They use them. They let you build the palace, then lock you out when the lights go on. And I was about to learn that the hard way. I sat at our kitchen table that morning, papers strewn everywhere, flight schedules, hotel confirmations, maps, a handwritten to-do list scrawled in my slanted handwriting. My laptop glowed softly in the early light, illuminating the scratch marks on the old wooden surface like scars. Marisa leaned against the counter, cradling her mug, her hair still tangled from a nap. She looked at me over the rim of her cup and said it again like it was nothing. "Mom wants her 65th birthday in Rome. I told her you'd help plan it." Her voice was light, effortless, like she hadn't just assigned me an unpaid full-time job with no thanks and no backup. My pen froze in midair. "Rome," I repeated, more to myself than to her. My throat tightened. She just smiled again, radiant and easy like always. "Come on, Daniel. You're the best at this. It'll be perfect. Our event. Our event." God, I was such a fool. I had been working like a man possessed. A full week of events, every minute planned down to the last detail. Lunch in a vineyard in Tuscany, a private tour of the Vatican, a boat ride along the Amalfi Coast with shaded seating because God forbid Celeste get a sunburn. The crown jewel was the rooftop dinner in Rome. I found the perfect spot, ivy-draped, lantern lit, a sweeping view of the city that made your chest swell just looking at it. I'd picked the floral arrangements myself, white roses, her favorite. Hired a string quartet, called a bakery with a 6-month waiting list, and practically begged them to take my order. Marisa floated in and out with breezy little notes. Mom prefers red over white, or don't make the flowers too tall. She said it was our event, like she was part of the scaffolding, not just the voice in the background while I hammered each beam into place. And still, I let myself believe we were a team. She smiled across the room once, and my stupid heart caught fire. But somewhere beneath the optimism, I knew the truth. She wasn't building this with me. She was tossing kindling while I burned. Compliments like bait. "You're amazing, Daniel." Then she'd vanish. Into her phone, into her office, into silence. I called her last night about the villa, booked, deposit still on my card. She muttered something through a yawn and hung up mid-sentence. I stared at the phone for a long time after. I ignored all the signs, the dodging, the emails from Celeste with her bullet-pointed demands. Be sure there's shade on the boat. Not a thank you. Not once. But I kept going. Told myself I was building something permanent, that this would be the moment, the one where they finally saw me. I imagined it all. Standing in my tailored suit with a glass of wine, the Rutherfords clapping me on the back. "Well done, Daniel." I ironed that suit weeks ago, hung it carefully, visualized the moment I'd finally belong. But I wasn't building a bridge. I was laying a trap. I wasn't her partner. I was the mule. She let me think it was ours while she handed me the burden and walked away. I gave them everything. Time, money, belief. I believed in her. That was my biggest mistake. The Rutherfords don't open the door. They let you carry the load, then shut it in your face. And soon, I'd learn just how brutal that door could be. It was late. I sat on the edge of our bed in the dark, the only light a dull amber glow sneaking through the blinds. Marisa wasn't home. Said she had a late marketing meeting, the same excuse for weeks now, wearing thinner each time. The bed beside me was untouched, the sheets still creased from that morning. I stared at them until my eyes burned. We barely spoke these days. Not really. Conversations reduced to fragments. "How was your day?" I'd ask as she walked past, heels tapping on the hardwood. "Fine," she'd say, eyes never lifting from her screen. "Okay," I'd mutter back. Silence would settle in again like dust, too heavy to ignore, too familiar to sweep away. I tried to reach her, suggested a movie night, dinner out, anything. She'd wave me off with a tired smile. Maybe next week. But next week never came. She used to laugh at my dumb jokes. We'd lie awake, whispering nonsense in the dark. That Marisa was gone, replaced by someone who lived in the same house but never actually arrived. I snapped one night. Couldn't help it. She was curled on the couch, legs tucked under her, typing away on her phone. I sat down next to her, close enough to feel her body heat. "Hey," I whispered. "Can we talk?" She didn't look up. "About what?" "I don't know. Us." A long sigh, like a mother tired of explaining something to a child. "Daniel, I'm working. It can wait." But it couldn't. I nodded anyway. Stood up. Left the room. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix it. But the moment that broke me came later. She was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I was rinsing dishes, my hands still wet. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. A single message on the lock screen. "I can't wait to see you in Rome. Julian." My stomach dropped like a manhole had opened beneath me. Julian. Julian. Her ex. Tall, moneyed, perfect to a fault Julian. The man her family adored. The one who'd once shaken my hand like it was a formality before reclaiming his seat at the throne. Rome. My trip. The trip. I stood there, water trickling from my fingers, the rest of my body frozen. She was planning to see him. There. During the party, I was killing myself to organize. Everything made sense now. The distance, the deflections, the meetings, the way she never touched me unless she had to. The signs were everywhere, and I'd painted over them with hope. I placed her phone back exactly where I found it, turned off the tap, wiped my hands. She came out moments later, wrapped in a towel, humming. Her face was calm, light, as if nothing was breaking. "You okay?" she asked casually. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She nodded, scooped up her phone, and walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, her breathing soft and steady beside me like a lullaby that used to mean safety. But now it sounded like betrayal. And in that silence, I understood something brutal and final. They weren't just forgetting me, they were setting me up. That dinner in Rome, my Rome, it wasn't going to be my redemption. It was going to be my public undoing. Her family had always wanted Julian, not me. I was the stand-in, the conveniently placed prop who built the perfect stage, only to be shoved off it before the curtain even rose. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling everything I had fought for slip through my fingers like sand through a broken hourglass. And all I could hear, looping in my mind like a curse, was that message. "I can't wait to see you in Rome. Tell him." My eyes burned from sleepless nights, but my mind? Razor sharp, alive with fury. Marisa was already in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday. I stayed in bed, motionless, until I made a choice. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. Yelling wouldn't fix this. It'd make me the villain, the jealous husband, the insecure little man who spied. No, I had to be smarter, cold, calculated. So I washed my face, pulled on a smile, and walked out like the world hadn't just crumbled under my feet. "Morning," I said, grabbing the paper like I was still interested in the day. She smiled, that too bright, too casual smile. "Morning, sleep okay?" "Great," I lied, pouring myself coffee. She went back to her phone, fingers moving fast. Was it him? I kept my mouth shut. A week later, we were on a plane to Rome. She held my hand, took selfies with her family. I smiled for everyone, played the role. Inside, I was boiling. Betrayal, disgust, strategy, all swirling into a dangerous calm. I'd learned to wear a mask around the Rutherfords, to nod through their jabs, to pretend I didn't hear their condescension. This was no different. Only this time, I was taking notes. Step 1. Gather evidence. When she left her phone on the nightstand for a shower, I moved. One snapshot of the screen, another message from Julian. Flirty, counting the days. I emailed it to myself, deleted the message, left no trace. Later, I combed through my own inbox. Dozens of messages from Celeste. Confirm the villa, change the wine, adjust the seating, never a thank you. Just orders. I saved every one. Step 2. Check their plans. One night, I grabbed the wrong tablet. Hers, not mine. The hotel room was dark. She was asleep. I opened the itinerary. Vineyard lunch. Amalfi boat ride. Vatican tour. My name? Nowhere. They'd scrubbed me out like a coffee stain. Like I was never supposed to be there. I put the tablet back, sat in the dark, heart pounding like a war drum. That rooftop dinner, the event, was still on. Still mine. That's when they'd do it, whatever it was. Make their big move. I could feel it coming. Step 3. Fight back. I didn't get sloppy. I didn't get emotional. I got surgical. I'd spent years managing logistics, orchestrating chaos, solving problems under pressure. This wasn't new. This was mine. The battlefield. From the hotel balcony, while Marisa slept, I made calls. First, my assistant back in Bastogne. "All the Rome vendors," I said. "Send me every invoice, every payment, every confirmation. Copy me on everything." No questions, just action. Next, the restaurant. "Double-check the reservation," I told the manager. "Let me know if anyone tries to change it." Then the villa, the boat company, the Vatican guide. Everything had been booked under my name, my card, my resources. They didn't know it yet, but I owned the trip. Every bite, every view, every candlelit moment. And I smiled through it all. Took Marisa to breakfast, laughed at her father's tired jokes, took photos with Celeste, the ice queen. They thought they were puppeteers. They didn't see the strings tightening. I watched closer now, the glances at her phone, Celeste's smug nods, Uncle Paul dropping cryptic hints. Rome's going to be a turning point. Yes, it was, just not in the way they thought. I didn't sleep much, just lay there beside her secrets, counting down the days. I wasn't sad anymore, or angry. I was ready. The night arrived. I stepped out of the elevator and onto the rooftop. Rome spread out before me in a symphony of gold and violet. The sky looked like it had been painted in wine. The Colosseum stood in the distance, silent and eternal. I took a breath. The scent of roses, garlic, warm bread. The string quartet played softly in the background. Perfect. I was late. Traffic from the hotel had been a nightmare, but the table was exactly as I'd envisioned. Long, elegant, dressed in white linen. Garlands hung above like stars. The roses, my roses, scattered like a memory. There were 12 seats, not 13. My stomach flipped. I stood a few steps away, counted again. 12. No mistake. No oversight. They'd planned it. No seat. No setting. Not even a damn napkin for me. Marisa looked up, saw me. That little smirk twitched at the corner of her lips. The one she used when she thought I was too slow to catch on. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. I just smiled back. The same way I smiled when I booked every single piece of their perfect night. Let them toast. Let them gloat. The curtain was rising, and they had no idea the stage was mine. "Oops," Marisa said, her voice bright and slicing, loud enough to echo across the rooftop. "Guess we were wrong." Laughter followed. Celeste's sharp and syrupy, Paul's booming, Gia's delicate snicker. A chorus of smugness wrapped in designer silk and inherited arrogance. 12 faces turned to me with that look, the one you give a waiter who's lingered too long at the table, like I was the help who'd forgotten his place. A flame flared in my chest. My throat tightened. Still, I didn't move. I scanned the table, willing someone to break the script. Someone to say, "Hey, pull up a chair," or even crack a joke to soften the blow. But there was nothing. Just their laughter ricocheting off the ancient stone, each chuckle landing like a slap. They'd done this on purpose. I knew every detail of this night because I'd built it. I chose the wines, the music, the goddamn flowers. I'd orchestrated every moment like a composer conducting his finale. And now I was the one locked out of my own crescendo. Julian's message ran through my mind like poison. "Can't wait to see you in Rome." The changed reservations. My name scratched out like a stain. It was never an accident. It was theater. And I was the punchline. Marisa lifted her glass, her eyes daring me. "Go on. Make a scene." They wanted me to explode, to shatter in front of them so they could confirm what they already whispered. He was never one of us. I didn't oblige. "I'm not family," I said, my voice flat, calm, louder than their amusement. Marisa blinked. A flicker of something, uncertainty, rippled in her smug expression. "Good. Let it rot her for a second." Then I turned, the scrape of my shoes against the stone floor sharp and deliberate. I didn't run. I exited. Behind me, the string quartet played on, the melody now feeling sinister, mocking. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could picture Marisa rolling her eyes, Celeste laughing like I was being dramatic, the others snorting behind their wine glasses. They thought I was retreating. But I wasn't fleeing. I was resetting the board. As I passed the waiter, the same one I'd tipped to the heavens to keep everything flawless, I caught his eye and gave the nod. Our signal. He blinked once, then melted into the kitchen like smoke. The elevator doors closed around me. Inside, I leaned against the wall, chest hammering, but mind ice cold. This was their moment of victory, or so they thought. They had no idea they'd stepped onto a stage I'd rigged weeks ago. I pulled out my phone, thumbed the message to my assistant. "It's time. Pull everything. All shades." Then I stepped into the night, Rome buzzing around me like electricity. I crossed the street to the rooftop bar I'd scouted earlier, a beer in hand. A view of the city spread before me like a living painting. The Colosseum brooded in the distance, ancient and knowing. Below, at the restaurant, their party continued, temporarily. I sipped the beer, its bitterness grounding me. My chest still stung from the slap of Marisa's mockery, but now I could breathe. The setup was theirs. The fallout was mine. I watched as the waiter leaned in toward Celeste, whispered something low. Her glass froze midair. Her posture snapped upright. Perfect. The shift rippled like a dropped stone in still water. Paul stopped laughing. Marisa's fingers flew across her phone. One by one, they all checked their screens. Heads bent. Voices climbed. I took another sip and smiled. They were finally catching on. Every villa, every yacht, every tour, they were all booked in my name, my company, my card. I'd spent weeks threading the entire trip through a web only I controlled, and 10 minutes ago, I yanked it all down. Before I left, I'd told my assistant, "Kill everything. No refunds to them. Only me. Vineyard tours, canceled. Yacht rentals, pulled. Hotel rooms, gone. The Tuscany villa, locked. Every plan they'd made, vanished. And the restaurant? That was the cherry. A few days back, I had pulled the manager aside. If I give you the signal, stop service, cancel the bill, let them handle it." He didn't ask questions, just nodded. Now the waiters paused. Dishes stopped mid-delivery. The wine halted. Plates remained empty. And the check, oh, the glorious check, landed in Celeste's lap. Full price, no discount, no reservation, no prepayment. I watched her rise, arms flailing, mouth open in royal outrage. Paul was already on his phone, barking into it. Marisa stayed seated, staring down at her screen like it might bite her. My cousin twisted in his chair like a trapped animal. Beautiful, controlled, chaos. This was my art. I'd spent years fixing other people's messes, running logistics like a war tactician. This was the masterpiece they didn't know I had in me. They tried to write me out. Thought I'd stand there, swallow the shame, slink away. But I'd seen the messages. I'd mapped the route changes. I'd watched Marisa retreat, piece by piece, until only her shell remained. So I got ahead of them. I set the trap, sealed it in silence, and smiled through every fake family breakfast. Now they were stranded. No villa, no yacht, No fancy dinners to flex for their country club friends. Just chaos and an expensive reminder that I was never just the +1. They wanted to erase me. Instead, I made them irrelevant. I finished my beer, set the bottle gently on the railing, and let the night claim me. The Roman air whispered cool across my skin. My phone vibrated softly in my pocket. A message from my assistant. Refunds processing. Sellers unreachable. Perfect. I typed back. Let them sweat. But it wasn't satisfaction I felt. Not joy, not even revenge. It was colder than that. This wasn't about settling scores. It was about reclaiming space they'd tried to erase me from. For years, they'd treated me like a forgotten footnote. Convenient when needed, discardable when not. Tonight, I showed them. I wasn't some forgotten tag. I was the architect. I'd built their fantasy, and with one breath, I'd blown it down. The rooftop lights flickered on behind me, casting a sterile glow on untouched plates and full wine glasses. Waiters stood like question marks. Celeste had her face buried in her hands, fingers lost in her immaculate hair. Marisa was scanning the street like a child searching for a parent after getting lost, as if she might find me. She wouldn't. I was a ghost now, watching, beyond their reach. The exit was clean. The round was mine. Later, I sat in the hushed elegance of the hotel lobby, a whiskey glass snug in my palm. The marble floors gleamed, the clink of cutlery and quiet conversation murmuring from across the room. I'd left the rooftop once I saw the panic take hold, like ants suddenly aware of the rain. My phone stayed off. I didn't need to hear them beg. Not yet. The elevator dinged. She stormed in like a tempest. Marisa, in that same red dress, now wrinkled and tired, her hair unraveling from its flawless coil. Her heels struck the floor like war drums. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed, stopping a few feet from me, fists clenched at her sides, breath heavy. I met her eyes and took a sip, the whiskey cutting through the heat in my chest like a blade. "I'm not family, remember?" I said, cool as stone. Her face twisted, the red blotching up her neck, her fury curling into something uglier. "You canceled everything! The villa, the yacht, the dinner. You humiliated me, Danielle. My mother nearly fainted. Paul's shouting down the phone at the concierge like it's my fault." I set the glass down with a soft clink, like a period at the end of a sentence. "Strange," I said. "You didn't seem too bothered when you forgot to set out a chair for me." That landed. She flinched, subtle, but I caught it. "You're a vindictive bitch," she spat. "Petty. This question mark. This is beneath even you." I smiled. Small. Surgical. Just enough to rattle her. Then I pulled out my phone and turned it on. I opened the folder. Screenshots of her messages with Julian. "I can't wait to see you in Rome. Tell them." Itinerary emails from Celeste, my name neatly cut out. I let her see it. "I know what you were planning," I said, voice steady as steel. "You and Julian thought you'd sweep me out, make a little show of it. Dinner was your performance, your grand, whoops, we forgot her moment." She looked like I'd slapped her. Her mouth parted, no words. "You thought you'd control the narrative. Poor Marisa, trapped with a loser, finding freedom in the arms of the guy her family always liked better. That was the fantasy, right?" She blinked, stunned. A pause heavy enough to bury someone in. "You underestimated me," I said, standing. She had to tilt her head up to meet my eyes now. "You wanted a scene? This is the scene. You pushed me out. I just gave you the full weight of that pushback." I pocketed my phone. The damage was done. Villa, gone. Yachts, gone. Deposits, credits, perks, vanished like mist. "You're ruining us," she whispered. It was barely a voice anymore. My mom's reputation, my career. I stepped closer. You ruined me. You made your choice. I just made sure you felt it. I turned. I was done. Wait, she gasped, grabbing my wrist. We can fix this. I'll end it with Julian. We can still... I pulled my arm free, firm but final. You don't get to play me twice. And I walked. Up the stairs, away from her crumpled dress and smeared lipstick and the ghosts of her family's voices echoing down from the rooftop. They came rushing in moments later, Celeste, Paul, the whole damn parade, accusing, demanding, begging. I showed them the file. No shouting, no drama, just proof. Let the truth sit in their mouths like vinegar. And then the lobby doors closed behind me. Upstairs, in my room, I poured another whiskey. The silence wrapped around me like armor. They'd spin it, paint me as the villain, call it a meltdown. But I had the receipts. Marisa's carefully curated image, cracked, leaking. And me? I walked before they could rewrite the ending. I gave them their humiliation. Served cold, precise, public. Fair was fair. The next morning arrived quiet. Rome still slumbered. The hotel room was dark, serene. My bag sat by the door, already packed. Just the essentials. I didn't need much else. I had everything I needed now. I showered, shaved, and slipped into a fresh shirt, taking one last look at my phone. No calls, no texts. Rutherford, silent after the storm in the lobby the night before. Marisa standing there pale, frozen, unspoken. But it didn't matter anymore. I was done. I grabbed my bag, checked it once, and walked out. The cab ride to the airport was smooth. The city stirring to life in the early morning. Old men sweeping sidewalks, trucks rumbling by, the hum of Rome waking up. I leaned back and watched the city unfold, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't freedom. It was something deeper, something quiet. The weight had finally lifted. At the airport, I upgraded my ticket to first class with the refund money from the canceled villa. Why not? I'd earned it. The plane took off, Rome shrinking beneath me, and I sipped my coffee, staring out at the clouds, a strange sense of peace settling in. For the first time, I didn't feel like a pawn in someone else's game. Yes, but this time, it was mine. And that was enough. Back in Boston, news spread fast. I didn't have to say much. Marisa's affair with Julian, how it came out, I still don't know. Maybe a loose-tongued cousin, maybe one of the salesmen who overheard the fight, but the whispers started. Surlist Ursi Serkaru began to gossip. Donors pulled out of her charity. Golaz, that perfect Rutherford name, couldn't resist. It wasn't my victory. I didn't gloat. They had done the damage themselves. I simply watched. I kept my head down. Started over. The old job was too tangled in her family's web. I walked away and built something from nothing. A small logistics firm at first, just me, a couple of clients. But I stayed true. No shortcuts, no lies. Years passed. I worked from a rented office with squeaky floors, nothing glamorous. I wasn't looking for flash anymore. Words about what happened in Rome settled like dust, forgotten but not quite. I didn't hide from it. I just moved on. Business picked up. Slowly. Steadily. I hired an assistant, then a second guy to handle the numbers. Life became simple. Work. Home. A cold beer on the porch at night. No more pretending. No more trying to fit into a world that was never mine. I was doing what I was good at. A year later, I found myself back in Rome. Not for them. No, not for anyone. But for work. A client hired me to coordinate a wedding. A rich couple with high expectations. I booked the flight, landed in the same city, but with a different sense. No bitterness, no ghosts, just the job. The wedding was on a different rooftop, far from the one where it all fell apart. The night before, I stood alone, inspecting the setup. Tables, lights, flowers, ensuring everything was in place. The sun had dipped, leaving the sky ablaze with orange, the Colosseum glowing in the distance, and I thought about that chair, the empty one, the one that started it all. I remembered standing there humiliated while they laughed, oblivious, how I walked away, how I turned it around. I'd made them feel the sting they never saw coming. But now, I didn't hate them. Not Marisa. Not Celeste. Not even Julian. They were just a lesson. A hard one, but a lesson nonetheless. I picked up a glass of water. I didn't need whiskey anymore. That night had shown me where I never belonged, pushed me toward where I did. The wedding went off without a hitch. The next day, the bride screamed with joy, the groom smirked, and the guests clapped. My client shook my hand, smiling. "You're flawless, Daniel. The best." I nodded. "Thank you." I collected my clipboard and left. On the flight back home, I looked up at the clouds again, the world small beneath me. I had lost my marriage, the family I never truly had. But what I gained was something better. Myself. No more proving anything. No more chasing after acceptance. Just a quiet victory built on my own terms. That was enough.